Welcome to the 434th episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Welcome, and thank you for listening. Countdown is actually starting for the Silver Rush 50-mile race in Leadville, Colorado, July the 8th weekend. So it's coming quicker than I would like it to. Humidity is going up nice here in Florida, so heat training correlates to altitude training a little bit, so I'm using it to my advantage. It's a pretty hot weekend, though. Tire pulling more often, so more days of the week. Walking up my incline on the treadmill, 5,280 feet times 15% grade. Repeat 1 mile to 3 miles. So that's how I'm trying to accomplish training for mountains here in the flatlands. So time will tell if it's actually going to work or not. We'll see. There's a lot of talk about the gut microbiome, especially how it relates to the immune system, how it relates to inflammation in general in the body. So what you eat affects your inflammation directed by your gut microbiome, releases proteins, causes inflammation in the heart, inflammation in the joints by what you eat. So diets heavy in oils can cause more inflammation in the joints. The microbiome is how we fight infections, our general inflammation state, so how we react to viruses, infections based on our gut microbiome. But a lot of people don't think about how your skin is involved in your microbiome. And we really have a whole lot of surface area with our skin. And it's, as I talked before in a previous podcast, the skin is a good way to get rid of toxins. And sweating is one of the best things. Some people say, I don't like to sweat. Some people say, I don't sweat. Sweat can be trained. So the more you exercise out in the heat and acclimate, the more you'll be able to sweat. There are medications that decrease the ability for the blood vessels to dilate and constrict effectively. So they can decrease heat sensitivity, or they delay sensitivity. And of course, overall hydration can play a role in that. But the skin and the bacteria that's associated with it can be very important as we get old. People often come into the office with frequent skin tears or thinning skin. Of course, we all know about aging skin. Forget about, put on the back burner lesions of the skin, so they can be benign, or they could be a squamous cell carcinoma or a basal cell carcinoma, or worst case scenario, melanoma. Those are cancers of the skin, but in general, aging of the skin as we get older, it tends to lose elasticity, tends to wrinkle more, but also is a site of infection. So if people develop swelling in their lower extremities, it stretches the skin and the integrity is decreased, and the bacteria that reside on the skin can invade and cause what we call cellulitis, or reddening of the skin. And it can become severe and actually infect the blood system, causing a bloodstream infection requiring IV antibiotics. We know that diabetics, because of the glucose and poor glucose control and different pH, the microenvironment of their gut microbiome, but as well as the skin microbiome, also changes, and there tends to be more staph in diabetic skin, so they're much more prone to skin lesions, skin infection, rashes, bumps, and so forth. Often people will say what to do about thinning skin. Collagen is a big word that always comes up. Bone broth is another thing that comes up. So eat bone broth, take collagen pills. Collagen is a protein that's in the skin as far as part of the matrix, or the what holds the skin together. If we back up just a little bit, when we talk about skin, there's what we call an epidermis, which is the very, very top layer, and then down below is the dermis. And the top layer is where, again, it's typically a very, there's lipid rich. It is water insoluble, so it's supposed to be waterproof. When we look at the turnover of skin, the epidermis is kind of the dead last bit of the keratinocytes, which are the cells of the skin. The dermis down underneath doesn't have much in the way of cells, but it has more of this lipid-rich barrier, the collagen, and it's kind of where the matrix of the skin, or the integrity of the skin, is. So, again, as we get older, we talk about our skin thinning. So why is that? Why do we all of a sudden lose collagen and elastic? And some people lose subcutaneous fat as they get older, so it appears that their skin is thinner. Certainly muscle mass loss results in a decrease in the skin integrity over skin barrier with fat, subcutaneous fat in the dermal layer. So that can be a problem. And hydration is typically a big problem. So we have a lot of people that aren't very well hydrated, and that, if you think about it, if our skin is like the leaves of a plant, so to speak, if you don't water, the leaves dry up and become crumbly, think skin. So it's very important to stay hydrated. And what about sun? We've had, fear of the sun exposure. It's going to damage your skin, cause damage to the integrity of the skin over and over throughout the years. Certainly it affects people of more of a northern light skin versus dark skin. The more melanin, the darker the skin. When you tan, that melanin actually increases. It also increases the immune response. So there's somewhat of a protective aspect of tanning. Nutrition, people that are lacking in vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin E in particular, have a decrease in the ability to make collagen in the protein matrix that holds the skin together. And then again, just overall sun exposure, which helps to generate collagen exposure. So it kind of all goes together. So if you have someone that's inside, not doing any exercise, with metabolic insufficiency or pre-diabetes or diabetes, you can see how the skin can be a big reflection of overall total body health. If you're not doing any exercise, it's one way that you're not eliminating toxins, so you're having more accumulation of metabolic waste. And so what do you do? Taking collagen is not the answer. If you swallow a collagen pill, it's broken down into its amino acids, and your body has to put it back together somehow, and that's the whole problem in the first place. It's not that we don't have the raw materials to make collagen. There's something in our body that decreases, there's some part of making collagen that's faulty, so we don't make as much collagen. So whether you're making it innately or you're taking in amino acids or substrate or building blocks, you have to be able to make it in the first place. And that seems to be the problem. But things that you can do is, again, number one, keep hydrated. Diabetes control for those with glucose intolerance. Getting out and getting into the sun to get the near radiation. So heating generates collagen production. So again, I'm not talking about going out and frying your skin, but getting near red radiation in the early mornings and early afternoon hours is really important. It's also going to affect the microbiome of the skin. So people that never get outside, that are inside with an unhealthy microbiome inside, are going to tend to have skin that's also unhealthy. If you've been on antibiotics for a prolonged period of time or a lot, then that can also affect the microbiome of the skin and what's selected for. So people have heard of MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staph aureus infections. It can be very difficult to treat. even worse is flesh-eating bacteria. But all of those things result from the overexposure of bacteria to antibiotics that, again, select for these superbugs. So when you have animal products to eat, you're basically getting a dose of antibiotics because the antibiotics were given to the animal and the factory farms. So you're also becoming more antibiotic resistant just because of the exposure of the animals that you eat in their microbiome. And of course, if you're eating dead and decaying things, you select for a gut microbiome, more inflammatory as well there. And that also changes your skin microbiome. There was a study that looked at near-red radiation and collagen production by the fibroblasts, which are a type of cell, and they noted that the collagen production actually went up in about 50 to 75% of patients. They also had improvement of the color and the texture of the skin. Foods like broccoli, kiwi, mango, spinach, and sunflower seeds are very high in vitamin E. We need about 15 milligrams daily. That also helps to produce the collagen of the skin. Vitamin C is also important in that reaction. So a lot of the vitamin C in our bodies are actually stored in our skin. So we probably use more vitamin C as we get older. May be a reason to supplement if you're not getting the vitamin C intake that you think you should. There was a study looking at college kids that had vitamin C with their alcoholic beverages. They had less sunburns. So vitamin C is helpful to protect against skin damage from the UVA and UVB radiation. Again, almost the majority of sun is near-red radiation, which is much more healthy than the UVA and UVB, which causes skin damage. So again, don't be so afraid to get some sun exposure and or heat exposure. When people eat a low-fiber diet that's highly processed, that's also selecting for a microbiome that's less healthy. So, we kind of poo-poo what we eat and how it affects everything, but it's very much related to our whole body function, especially since we have more bacteria living with us and more genes from those bacteria than we do our own genes. So what you eat is what you grow. There was a study looking at sauna versus running to heat the skin and to eliminate heavy metals such as nickel, lead, copper, and arsenic. And turns out that running and sweating actually eliminates more heavy metals than a sauna would, mainly because you get your core temperature up much more running, especially running in the heat, than you would sitting in a sauna for 15 to 20 minutes. I hear so many people saying, I can't go outside and walk now because in this weather. And we're literally just getting into Florida hot weather right now. It's been relatively cool up into the last couple of weeks, but people have turned off going outside. It seems like once the temperature got above 70 degrees, then people, took to their comfort zones. That 72 to 76 temperature threshold that people tend to keep their house at. If the outside temperature is anything different, but that it tends to keep people inside and avoiding outside and everything that goes with it. People that are deficient in B vitamins can have frail skin or impaired wound healing, fungal infections of the skin and the nails, dermatitis. Just to clarify, B vitamins include thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, pantothenic acid, peroxidine, biotin, folate, and cobalamin. We know that cobalamin or B12 is not very prominent in plant-based diets. Nutritional yeast is one source. So that's why we do a chewable B12. We like people's B12 levels to be in the 500 range. Folate sources are very high in green leafy vegetables. Most of the other vitamins are very rich in whole grains, as well as leafy greens such as spinach, collards, turnips, romaine lettuce, and so forth. So eating greens, a lot of older people don't get near the greens that they should. It's another reason to get your 6 cups of greens in daily. A good source of whole grain is another good thing to make sure you have in your diet. So it's easy as a plant-based person to get your B vitamins if you're eating colorful foods and green leafy vegetables as well as whole grains. Another thing that can cause problems in the skin, which is not reported very often, is statin use. There has been a variety of dermatitis, skin rashes, cutaneous lupus, photosensitivity associated with increasing statins. So that can be a problem. The other part is that dermal layer has a lipid-rich core to it, and I don't think anybody's looked at, but we tend to be in a time where we are trying to drive lipid levels to all kind of abnormal lows. Probably when we're born, we have a cholesterol of 140, but there are a lot of people that are trying to drive lipids down into the low 100s. And I'm not sure what that result will have on people as they age, especially with skin health and skin integrity, and a variety of other things. So we know that statins can increase the dryness of the skin, making hydration more of a problem. Statins have been associated with tendon issues, specifically the collagen production in the tendons or the maintenance of healthy tendons. So you could infer that if there is a problem with the collagen in the tendons, there may be a problem with the collagen in the skin. So people that are on long-term statins could also see a frailty of their skin. So what's a person to do? Again, healthy plant-based diet with rich and green leafy vegetables, got to go and fruits, and goes a long way to increase your vitamin C, your vitamin E, your B vitamins that protect your skin and your heart at the same time. So back to nutrition, I think you can see where we're kind of headed. So again, put exercise in there, increase your ability to sweat, get rid of toxins. It all goes along for making a healthy individual without much medical intervention. And speaking of healthy, strong bodies, there was a study looking at leg strength tied to the development of heart failure after people have a heart attack. And they looked at 932 people. This is in the European Heart Journal. And 81% of them were men. After they had a heart attack, they tested their quadriceps strength. That's the muscle in the front of the leg. So if you think about extending or doing a wall slide, so if you put your back against the wall and your feet about 2 feet away from the wall and you slide down to your thighs are parallel to the floor, that would be a wall slide. So the front muscle starts to contract. That's quadriceps. If you do a lunge, you're contracting your quadriceps. So you go down a hill, you need strong quadriceps muscle. So they're one of the biggest muscles in the leg, and if they're strong, tends to help out your heart. So whether or not chicken or the egg, perhaps, that if you have a strong quadriceps, you're a little bit more fit in general, but you're able to pump blood back up and venous return back up to your heart, so your heart doesn't have to work as hard, perhaps. But people that had quadriceps, so women needed 33%, needed to be able to do a leg extension as a measure of their quadriceps strength. So women, if they could do 33% of their body weight as a leg extension, that was considered a good quadriceps strength, and men had to do 52% of their quadriceps strength. And they put them in a low strength versus a high strength group, and there was much less heart failure if you had good quadriceps strength over the course of several years. Each 5% increase in strength was associated with 11% decrease in heart failure. So quads are also connected to knees, so it's one of the big sources of knee pain if there's tightness or weakness of the quadricep muscle. So it's a good muscle to strength train. Wall slides, like I said, is a great way to rehab your knee. Single leg drops, lunges, leg extension are all good. And again, it comes back to you need to be strong, not necessarily to be a giant. Frequent, lifting light weights a lot of time tends to build more muscle, but not necessarily stronger muscle. But doing body weight exercises such as lunges or lunges with dumbbells, a goblet, so if you grab a weight and goblet front squat, tends to put more strength into the quads. Step ups, stepping up on a step back and forth, using your body weight exercise. Go back, take the steps when you have a chance. I have steps in my house. I don't try to avoid going up them. So if I need to get something upstairs, I use it as a good reason to do strength training. So I don't regret going up and down stairs as many times as I can throughout the day. I have stairs at my office that I take. But if you have the ability to go up and down stairs, it's a great thing. If you just have 2 or 3 steps, you can turn to the side and lower, bend the leg that's on the step. You bend that leg and let your extended opposite leg just heel tap and come back up. That's a great way to work your quadricep strength as well. If you're waiting on something to microwave, go up against a wall and do a wall slide for about 30 seconds. That's a good way to build quadricep strength. So all good things to increase your strength, decrease your incidence of heart failure. I was listening to a podcast today about a gentleman who had a running streak of over 30 years. So for 30 years, he ran at least 1 mile every day until he got COVID, and that's really what ruined his streak. But he was asked, why do it? And you may think that that's crazy. So if you got a cold, you just get up and run your mile. If you traveling, you get up early to run your mile. So you just don't want to mess up the streak. Even if you can't use crutches or a walker that would ruin your streak. So you have to run without the aid of something. You have to run the mile, not walk the mile, to keep that streak or to be in the book of running streaks. And there were quite a lot of people that had years and years and years of running streaks. When I think about it, days seem like a long time to have a running streak. Something tends to come up for me that if I'm traveling, I don't usually run on that morning. I'm going to the airport. After a marathon, I may give myself a day off or 2, depending on how I feel. I'll go for a walk, but I won't go for a run. So I'm not a streak type person, but I do. I think it's a cool thing for people to have, such drive to want to keep this streak alive, which is largely driven internally. So how does that relate to nutrition and overall health? Because sometimes when people continue that streak, it may not be in the health's best interest. If, they have a fracture or their break or a sprained ankle and they run on it anyway, it may actually delay the healing somewhat. So is it good for you? I don't know, but the fact that they can do it, I think, raises questions on, consistency and the reasons. If I run every day, then I'll be considered a real runner because I do it. Or if I don't run, I might quit. So everybody has multiple different reasons for doing the streak of something in succession. It's what I always done, once you start it, I don't want to stop it. People don't know how to stop it. But how do you apply that to something good, say eating healthy? How many days can you do a healthy eating streak? Most people that struggle only can put 2 or 3 days together before they blow their good, healthy eating streak. Some people go 6 months, but then they blow their healthy eating streak. And it happens the same way as kind of blowing a running streak. Once you don't have the streak anymore, it's like it never happened. it's over, it's done, the thought of starting over might be too daunting. And so people wallow for a while before they get their streak started again to start eating healthy or doing whatever they were doing in consecutive days. So I think that's, again, the biggest thing I see in people when they can't maintain or achieve their weight loss goals or their health goals is because they can't extend the streak any further. And maybe they need more rules about it. What entails, a good eating streak. I think when we define things and put rules, I call it putting a fence around certain things that I don't do. But maybe it would be more positive to define what a good eating streak would be, such as how many days in a row can you eat 6 cups of leafy greens? How many days in a row can you manage to get 4 servings of fruit or more? How many days in a row, can you get 50 grams of fiber or more? Those would be streaks to look at. And I think once you start streaks like that, it kind of pushes some other bad habits out of the way a little bit. If to maintain a streak of good eating, you have to kind of get rid of bad eating. So, it's hard to get some of it'd be hard to get 50 grams of fiber in if you were eating out, eating junk food. It'd be hard to get the greens in the day if you were eating other things. So I think perhaps, it might not be a bad idea if you're struggling to try to set up some sort of calendar for a nutritional eating streak that you could, continue for, the basis with particular goals in mind. Sometimes people have how many miles that they want to run in a year as a particular goal, or how many marathons they want to get in a year. But it could also be, nutritionally what your cholesterol you want to achieve in the year, your weight loss number that you want to achieve for the year. Think about it and see if you could apply it to your own circumstance. But I get motivation from a lot of people, even though I'm not going to do a running streak per se. It makes me want to go out more often than, just saying, oh, well, I can always do a mile for the most part. Today was a good example. I had a pretty big running weekend and was just fatigued this morning, but I, kind of managed to get out and get the 1.5 miles in the tire pull in just to kind of get things started. And then one thing leads to another, and you do some weights or you do some other activities, cross training, walking, whatsoever. But if you have some sort of a rule set about, I'm going to do at least this much, I'm going to eat at least these things, it makes it a little better. We are entering farmers market season in most places in the United States. Here in Florida, watermelons are coming into season, tomatoes are in season, blueberries are in good season. Of course, mangoes, my favorite fruit, are starting to come in season, June, July, early August. So try new fruits, try new vegetables, hit your farmer's market, get the variety of greens, change things up. We had winter foods, more hot foods. Since it's getting hot, try to do more raw foods, more fruit, more salads for lunch, and see if you can improve your nutrition that way. One of the keys, I believe, is to get the fruit and get it cut up. So we cut up a watermelon and have it in a big container so that you can kind of grab and go. I have things available that I can see and ready to go, and cut things up. And so you don't kind of stare at a pineapple if you have that, thinking I don't have time to cut it. Go ahead and get it cut up once you get it so that you're more likely to eat it. I don't prep my salads in advance. I pull from the big, the salad containers or chop up fresh kale. It doesn't take me any time at all. I kind of like doing that. I chop up my peppers when I'm, right as I'm getting ready to eat. The more you do that, the quicker you get at it. But I can make a big bowl of salad pretty quick and be on my way. So Fresh salsa is good this time of year on salads. Again, I'll add beans and rice to my salad, or put something else over top of the greens, but to make sure I always get that in. Still getting in mushrooms, several times a week. I like my different varieties of mushrooms. Also have a lot of B vitamins, vitamin D as well. So use the food to your advantage. If you're eating Cocoa Puffs and Gardein burgers, you're not eating healthy, even though it might be vegan. So look for the fiber, look for the color, look for the variety, look for what's in season, and go for it. So thanks again for listening. If you want to know more about our practice, you can go over to Dr. Dulaney, DoctorDulaney, at drdulaney.com. You can email me at Jami at drdulaney, Jami at drdulaney, to send an email or question. We have multiple levels of practice with a full-time registered dietitian that can help consult and get you on your way, turn your plate how you need it. Again, we have a big interest in mobility and movement, so we have those classes in our practice that are put on Zoom and up on our website for people to look at. So move your body, eat colorfully, get out and get some of that near-red radiation to help improve your collagen production. And I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.